So just have a think about what tune you particularly like, so because it helps you save time thinking about it later. So just as a nice call to action to bring us here ready. So we're going to do this bit of talking at the first start, a little bit of teaching points, and then we're doing the emotional freedom technique. So make sure that you're comfortable. You know, get as many blocks as you need, extra props. There are chairs there. We can help you get chairs if you need them, yeah? Because it can get uncomfortable. I mean, I'm used to it. I can sit in meditation for 45 minutes like this. But it's taken many years to get there. So it can be uncomfortable sitting. So you can do what you want. You can lie back if you want. You can lie on your front. You can sit up. You can shuffle about and change around. So, because it can be a little bit uncomfortable sitting in one position for a while. So I just wanted the teaching points today, we're going to be talking more about the SWAN principle and strengths, weaknesses, ambitions and needs. But does anybody want to bring anything up about how the homework's progressing, or anything they've noticed, or any difficulties they've had either with the CDs or DVDs or just in general? Is everyone getting on generally okay with things? Managing to stick to the practice that we've said, which was trying to do the DVD up to 5 times a week. The coherent breathing, was everyone okay with the coherent breathing last week? So it's getting a bit longer with the breath. So you're probably noticing that you're able to breathe more deeply and smoothly and take deeper breaths than you were at the beginning. And the Antar Muna meditation, people enjoying that in general? Some of you may like it more than others, but if you can stick with it, that's great. Okay, so sorry about these silly dots. They are important later on for the, I've got used to them now, but for the emotional freedom technique, because I need you to know where these certain points are on your face and body. I've got a few more to put on actually. So, like me, you'll probably get used to them. So, we talk about a little, what to call them, I forgot what to call them, acronym, isn't it? Acronym. To help us remember the things that are important to us to become whole human beings, really. And the SWAN is a nice word, SWAN, S-W-A-N, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, ambitions, and needs. And each one is a separate thing. So we did a bit of work last week on strengths, didn't we? And I gave you that character strengths thing, and there was an online test if you wanted to do it. So this week, we're going to move on to some of the others. And it's important for us to be able to analyse these qualities in ourselves, to be able to kind of progress and move on from where we are, and to become, to fulfil more of our potential as a person. And strengths, in your workbook, there's a summary of it, each of the 4 qualities. And I'll read out what Swami Niranjananda says about it. Swami Niranjananda is my guru, if you like. He's in India, and he's blessed me with a spiritual name and stuff. So he's kind of an inspiration to me. But Swami Niranjananda, he's written lots and lots of books, famous yogi. And he says that the SWAN, strengths, weaknesses, ambitions and needs, are the 4 principles which make up our personality. In some people, inner strength, mental strength, strength of will, or the strength of the self is predominant. So strength is predominant. In some people, weaknesses are predominant, which can be a lack of willpower or lack of mental clarity. They might just be where we are at the moment. Some people identify more deeply with their ambitions and aspirations. And in some ways, they can be too ambitious. They can be ambitious at the sake and forsake everything else. And they spend their life trying to fulfill and attain them. And some people are more kind of stuck, or maybe more identify at the moment more deeply with their needs, which may be physical or social, maybe in relation to family, work, performance, or society in general. So if we have a way of understanding these and then kind of understanding and identifying them in ourselves, we can then begin to work with them and begin to move on. So, strengths are those qualities that contribute to our personal advancement, to our fulfillment and potential as a human being. They're attributes of our character. We did them last week, didn't we? So they're not talents, they're not things that we're good at. They're kind of more deeply ingrained than that. Human character traits, if you like. And they can lead us closer to our true nature. Weaknesses are, to stay on strengths. So strengths are the qualities that make us, for instance, more loving, more joyous, more confident, more positive, more filled with self-esteem, basically more secure and more able then to communicate on a meaningful level with other people. So that if we can work with our strengths, that's what they do for us. And we need to become aware of our strengths and develop them. So that's why I got you to list them last week. And we can work on them and develop them. Our weaknesses, so this week we're focusing on weaknesses and needs. Our weaknesses are those traits and tendencies that hold us back from moving forwards in those positive directions. So again, they're things that we need to be aware of. And when we become aware of them, we can work with them, we can curb their activities. So they hinder our progress in life. And they lead us away from our centre, from this strong sense of connection with our centre, with ourself. And moving on to ambitions. Ambitions are kind of wants or goals. You know, they can be positive, but sometimes we need to understand the difference between our real needs in life and our ambitions. And kind of understand the difference between what we want and what we need. So ambitions are generally what we desire in life. They can be real deep aims inside us or strong desires to achieve something. In the positive side, they can lead us to a very fulfilled life. And they motivate our actions to such an extent, in some people, that they can dominate their lives. We've talked about this. So it's really important to understand and remember that we have ambitions, but we also have needs, and we need to satisfy both. And ambitions, wants, if you like, can be very powerful because they're driven especially by our basic instincts of self-preservation, of sex, of desire, that kind of thing. So they can result in becoming kind of a bit dominant in our lives. So we need to remember that we don't want to identify too much with ambitions or wants. So the strength of our ambitions or desires will be determined by how much we're identified with them, by how much our happiness depends on them, if you like. And one way to simplify our lives and to evolve as a human being and to evolve away from anxiety and depression is to clearly identify what our ambitions are, what our wants are, to write them down, to identify them, and then to not get them mixed up with needs, basic human needs, not get the two mixed up. And needs. So we have needs simply because we're occupying a body, simply because we have a mind. They're basic human needs. And needs are physical, they're mental, they're emotional, and they can be spiritual as well, you know, if we're that way inclined. So these are our basic human needs, our needs, our requirements in life. And they can include the need for food, for drink, for oxygen, for shelter, for activity. But in the larger context, they include emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental aspects. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about needs. I mean, sorry about that. It's a bit of a shoddy chart because I've only had one pen and I was in a bit of a rush this morning. But can everybody see that? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Has anybody heard of that? Yeah, you've heard of it. You've heard of it. Anybody else? Yeah, a couple. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Maslow was an American psychologist, going back now to the first part of the 19th century. He died in 1970. And he studied lots and lots of people, and he found that there's kind of a basic hierarchy of human needs. And most people say that you have to satisfy the bottom ones before you can satisfy or realise the top ones. Maslow didn't actually say that, but that's quite often how it's taught. So we can see it as a pyramid, and that the needs at the bottom are the more basic needs. So quite often we can kind of get stuck there. If those needs aren't satisfied, they could kind of become an obstacle in our life. So the first thing to understand is that these are basic human needs, that we all have basic needs, and that we need to recognise what needs are important in us. So starting from the bottom, we have the basic needs, kind of survival related needs, just to kind of survive as a person, as a entity. So physiological generally. So we need to eat, otherwise we'll die. We need to drink, otherwise we'll die. We need activity, otherwise we'll get ill. And we need rest, otherwise we'll get ill. So the basic survival needs. And then moving up a level, we've got safety needs. So we need to feel safe. You know, we need to feel protected from threat, from danger. So we need a safe place to live. We need to feel safe and secure in where we live and work, etc. And then we're moving up, so we've got connection, the need for connection. We've talked about this in the previous session. So the basic human need for connection, for belonging, for love. So to be able to give and receive love, to feel connected to ourselves, to other people, to feel like we belong to a group, to feel like we belong somewhere, and to be able to receive and give love and affection. And receiving is important, but so is giving. Quite often that can be very healing. Last night I was teaching, it was my first session, I've been asked by the National Autistic Society to teach a very, very special yoga class for autistic kids, right? 7 to 10-year-olds. Now these kids, they've got loads and loads of serious needs, you know, that autism, I don't know if anybody knows about it, it affects people's social, so they haven't got that connection, that belonging, that love need fulfilled. They're really lacking of it. And I taught this class to them, and it was just remarkable. You know, I absolutely love these kids. They're all over the place, but they sit down and they did the yoga, and they did it. And they were absolutely, my heart just opened to them. Absolutely love them. So if you can find something that encourages you to give love and affection, quite often you find it coming back to you. Like halfway through this class, I was standing there teaching, and this little girl on the end, there's only 8, it's a small group, she come running up to me and just give me a big hug. You know, you give out love and affection and it comes back to you. Quite often it's quite a healing thing. And so moving up a level then, so we're coming now to the higher levels that Maslow recognised were kind of higher levels, kind of more sophisticated levels in a way, but he said, you know, generally it's interpreted that he said that the basic needs to be satisfied first. It's not always the case. So esteem, the need for self-esteem, esteem needs, the need to be esteemed and respected by other people, the need to have a sense of our own self-esteem and self-acceptance, acceptance of self. I think I talked about this last week. So esteem, self-esteem, acceptance of ourselves for who we are, warts and all. Even though I don't like spiders, I completely and totally accept myself. Even though I have a real fear of being in open spaces, I completely and totally accept myself. Even though I'm not always the good mother, I completely and totally accept myself. Self-acceptance, self-esteem. Very important set of needs. We need that as a human being. Then cognitive needs. So, you know, once we've kind of satisfied some of these lower level needs, we get on to kind of higher levels of purpose and fulfillment in life. So once we've kind of healed ourselves and learnt how to be more connected to ourselves and others, learnt how to feel more love and belonging, learnt how to feel safe, we then start to want the higher level needs. So cognitive needs, to be able to know, to understand, to explore life and to search for meaning in life, the cognitive process. And then aesthetic needs, you know, the need, some people have a really strong need. You know, one of my clients, one of her top priority needs is a real need for beauty in her life, an appreciation of beauty and art, and balance and order and symmetry in life. And then at the top level then, you know, when we're ready for it, it's to a real higher level of what is my calling in life? What is my purpose in life? And that's called self-actualization needs. So that's kind of how the hierarchy of needs work. But you need to understand what your key needs are now, like the strengths and weaknesses, they may well change throughout life. And to be able to do whatever you can to satisfy those. So, I mean, you may want to do it as they come up, as you're thinking about them. But what I want you to do in the workbooks is to make a list of some of your needs as you recognise them now. You know, I personally have a strong need for connection with others, a strong need to help other people, a strong need for someone to love me in my life, a strong need just to earn enough money. So these are some of the basic needs. And then you might want to have a go, if you're ready for it, to have a list, make a list of some of your weaknesses. So some of the things that might hold you back. It might be over worrying about things, or being too analytical, or not getting enough rest, overworking, overdoing it. So just some of the weaknesses that you've got. Because as soon as half the battle is awareness, we recognise this in ourselves and we become more aware of it. And only then can we do something about it. Okay. So there's a bit about the SWAN principle to remind you in the workbook, and hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. So emotional freedom technique is quite a nice lead-in to working with some of our needs, really, especially the need for self-acceptance. So it's called EFT. Has anybody heard of it? EFT, emotional freedom technique. Yeah, somebody's heard of it. Yeah, have you ever done it?
I think so, a long time ago.
Okay, well you may well, any of these look familiar?
Yes.
Okay. So you all need to make sure you can see me. You what?
No, it's all right, I think there's something else.
Yeah, as we do it, you might remember it. So just get into a position where you can see me, and you know, adjust yourself if you need to feel a bit more comfortable. So the emotional freedom technique is a process that we can use to work with a problem. A bit like the 4 directions that we did last week, that 4 directions practice. I don't know if any of you felt that kind of started to shift a problem that you had. But emotional freedom technique is even more powerfully aimed at sort of changing a problem or an issue that you have. So we need, EFT is a process, and I'm going to quickly show you the process, and then we're going to do it together. And it's a process that needs to be aimed at a particular target, a particular problem. A bit like, you know, footballer trying to score a goal. You've got to aim carefully at the direction of that problem or target. So, and within the emotional freedom technique, we tap into the meridians. You know, acupuncture, which, along with yoga, acupuncture and yoga are well, last time I looked at the research, were the only 2, or one, or a couple of the only few actual, or if you call it alternative therapies, not that I see yoga as an alternative therapy, but yoga and acupuncture were the only 2 that had been proven scientifically to actually help, to actually change health, to improve health, to change conditions, and to help solve problems. Medically, scientifically proven. So EFT is based on the acupuncture meridians, you know, the process of having points in the body which acupuncturists stick needles into. I'm not doing that today. I've been trained in acupressure, which is using pressure or putting pressure or tapping points to work in the same benefit. So it's based on acupressure and the meridian theory, which is to do with energy and energy flow in the body. And so basically,
is this anything remotely connected to sort of what some people call aversion therapy? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of aversion therapy.
Is it remotely connected to it or not?
It isn't.
No.
No, but I don't know enough about aversion therapy. It may work in a similar way of desensitization, but it's not at all like aversion therapy, but it may have. I can see why you're asking.
Yeah, there's no real reason I ask. I mean, it's just I've heard some bad things about that particularly.
Yeah. It's not in any way similar as a process, but I don't know, it may work, because aversion therapy is about desensitizing the brain by exposure. If you're scared of spiders, you could go and sit in a big pit of spiders, haven't you, for example. So it's nothing like that.
It's doing that type of thing, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, it might be more related to EDMR or EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, because it's all about how the brain stores information and how eye movement and using different parts of the body can affect how and where the brain stored information, so that an event isn't. What we basically do, we clear out the emotional loading of a problem. So when we have a problem, you know, like, I eat all the time, or I feel disgusted with myself, or I'm so worried about something, or I've got no confidence. They're kind of rooted in memories that become overloaded with emotion. And that's why we get into the pickle that we're in, either anxiety or depression. It's to do with the emotional connection to that problem. Is that making sense? And it becomes bigger than it needs to be. So EFT is a way of changing the way the brain's kind of got stuck. The brain kind of gets stuck, and it kind of frees it of the emotion with it, so that a problem or an event just becomes that, a problem or an event. It doesn't have that loading with it that we give that causes a problem. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the first thing that we need to do is to identify a problem. I think I'm going to do the technique at the end of class because we've been sitting for quite a while. So I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to go through it and show you what we're going to do. Then we're going to do some yoga, and then we're going to do the technique ourselves at the end of class, and it's probably the best thing to do. So we need to have a problem that we want to work on, which could be a fear of spiders, or a fear of public speaking, or, I want to eat all the time and I hate myself, or I feel disgusted with myself, or I'm so worried about something, or I have no confidence. Just giving you some examples. Our problems or issues are all going to be unique to us. So you need a problem or issue to work on, and be quite useful for you when you've identified it to just give it a score out of 10. How big a problem is this for me? Is it a 7 out of 10 or is it a 9 out of 10? Because then we use that at the end to see how EFT has changed it. These techniques don't work for everyone. Somewhere in this sort of tool bag of techniques that I'm giving you, you're going to find things that work really, really well for you. But EFT can be very powerful for a lot of people. So we scale it then at the end and see how it's changed it. And the first step is to put our chosen issue into an opening statement. Okay, so something like, if I work on I have no confidence in myself. I have no confidence in myself at all. So, for example, if that was my problem, I put it into a statement of, even though I have no confidence in myself at all, I deeply and completely accept myself. So even though I deeply and completely accept myself. So that's the opening statement. And that's how you phrase your statement. And then first thing that we do on this point here, so we have, sorry, it's not that point, it's another one. You might all want to just identify this now. If you put your left hand, if you put your left hand under your armpit so that your thumb's just pointing up, and use your thumb, doesn't really matter where your hand is now, but use your thumb to identify a point that feels a bit tender. It's about there. You will feel that. So it's about there on the front. For me, it's there. So I can feel it right there. So just move your thumb around just to identify a bit of a tender point. If it doesn't feel tender, great. That means that you know I've got a few more problems with it than you. But generally, most people feel a tender spot. But if not, this is a good indication. So your hand under your armpit, and where your thumb just sits there, that's the spot. Okay. So that spot there. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Most people feel it a bit tender. Yeah. So that's the spot. So what we do. We've got that statement, even though I have no confidence in myself at all, I deeply and completely accept myself. And we just rub this spot 3 times as we say that to ourselves. Don't do it now, we're going to do it at the end. As you're starting. So that's what we're going to do at the end. Okay, we rub that. So that's the first stage. And then the next stage is to begin tapping. So we begin tapping on these points, and there are a few more points on the fingers which I'll put on later on. So we begin tapping. But as you know, we need to work with a target and to have that goal in mind. And that's a bit of a long phrase. It's okay to do the rubbing the tender spot, but we need like a reminder phrase. So that phrase might just be 3 or 4 words, shortened version of your full phrase, which may be, for me, I have no confidence. I have no confidence. So that's the reminder phrase. And we start tapping. And we tap 7 times as we keep that phrase in mind. So we mentally repeat the phrase and we tap each point 7 times. This point 7 times, then this point 7 times. You see why I put these on now? This is right just at the bone of the eye here. If you all just identify the points. So right in the middle of your eyebrow, your third eye, which is GV24, on gallbladder meridian, governing vessel, sorry. And then this point here, right at the edge of the eye, just at the edge of the bone. Can you feel that bony bit there? So that point there. Right by the side of the eye, yeah. The right side of the body. It doesn't really matter what side. I'm using the right side because I'm right-handed and it's convenient. So if you're left-handed, just use the left side. It doesn't matter which side. And then underneath the eye, you feel right underneath the eye, you can just feel that bit of bony socket there, right just at the tip of that socket. And then this is the next point, right underneath the nose, the chin. So these spots are quite handy. And then the next point is the collarbone. So if you can just feel your collarbone. So it's right into where the collarbone is connected to the first rib. And you see the collarbone in the first rib, right close into the sternum. So about there where I've got the spot, you can feel that. So that's the next point. And then the next point after that is, I don't know if you've still got this one on my, for us ladies, it's on the side of the body. I've still got the spot, can you see that? For us ladies, it's right in the middle of your bra strap. Now you guys are probably familiar enough with bras, possibly, so it's kind of, so it's right there, it's about 4 inches below the armpit, okay, there. So that's the 7th spot. And then we're going to go to the ones on the hands. So the next spot is on the edge of the thumbnail. Again, now just using my, well actually I'm going to keep using my right hand. So go onto your left hand if you're right-handed, whichever's convenient. So it's right on the outside of the nail of the thumb, that spot there. And then the index finger, same side, so on the outside edge of the nail. And then the middle finger, we leave the ring finger out, then the little finger. And then the final point is called karate chop point. It's like, karate chop point, isn't it? It's right there on the edge of the padding of the hand. That's it, you've all got it, great. And the technique is 2 fingers, And we tap each point 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As we keep that phrase in mind, I have no confidence, I have no confidence, I have no confidence. Because it's a shortened version of, even though I have no confidence at all in myself, I deeply and completely accept myself. It's just a reminder phrase, and we tap all the points. And then the final thing that we do is this point here. It's called the gamut point. I'll tell you what we do with that in a minute. We do some eye movement stuff with that in a minute, which is kind of related to EMDR. So if you just know that point there as well, which is in between, you can feel the bones of the little finger and the ring finger. In between that, just about a quarter of the way down the hand, right there on the hand, yeah? Everybody clear with that one? That's called the gamut point. So we just continually tap that as we do some things which are quite simple, including humming your favourite song and counting. It only takes 10 seconds, this bit, but I'll show you that at the end, okay? And it's all to do with left brain, right brain. And we tend to get stuck in one mode. For anxiety, it's usually left brain. For depression, it's often right brain, although there are 2 forms of depression in terms of brain hemispheres. And it's to do with clearing out the emotional loading and balancing sides of the brain, okay? Bringing us into balance, yeah. So we'll do that at the end, I'll make sure. So let's do a bit of movement. So I was going to have us actually come to standing.